AVA adopts a multi-pronged approach to controlling the population of wild birds like crows, miners, and pigeons in our HDB estates. First, AVA works with town councils to implement measures to mitigate issues that are caused by birds, and this includes using bird deterrent gels and fogging trees to discourage birds from roosting near our residential areas. Second, AVA also works with NEA and town councils to ensure proper disposal of food waste at our hawker centres and also within our residential areas. This reduces the availability of food that will attract the birds. Third, AVA also works with NParks and town councils to prune trees within the estates to deter birds from roosting in those trees. Now, AVA also conducts regular surveillance of wild birds to detect diseases, and thus far, there has been no detection of diseases of concern in the common bird species. AVA also inspects pet shops that sells birds to the general public to ensure that the birds are properly looked after and in good health. Moreover, in our farming industry, our local poultry farms are required to put in place proper biosecurity measures to prevent any disease incursion. So members of the public are advised, therefore, also to exercise due care and caution to not handle any dead birds or have direct contact with bird droppings, because these are where diseases can be transmitted. AVA has considered the suggestion to use sonic systems to deter birds. However, I think we must be aware that the effects are usually temporary, and the birds have been known to acclimatize to the sound. Such sonic systems can also be quite loud, which reduces their suitability for deployment in our dense residential areas. The public, I must emphasize, also has an important role to play in curbing bird population by maintaining the overall cleanliness of the environment and not feeding the wild birds. AVA, NEA, and town councils will continue to educate residents not to litter or feed the birds. Enforcement actions will be taken against those who do not comply.
Mr. Kanyapo.
Thanks for the replies. Actually, in my area, we have areas that actually is, despite the effort, joint effort that put in, apparently the issue is not solved. So I want to know whether, besides those methods that you have mentioned, any others latest method that could be used to resolve this issue. In fact, I have one is quite badly. I was there. I can see it's noisy everywhere. How about a change of the tree? Is it possible to change another type of tree whereby it will not? So-called it will deter birds from resting over all these trees. Thank you.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I think it's in tackling this birds issue, we also must understand that this is a multifactorial problem. And if there are issues in which there is high-rise littering, I know there are some blocks in which we have residents actually throwing food particles, food substances out from the kitchen window. And I think these are behavior that actually constitutes a source of attraction for the birds to come. And once the birds are used to coming to a certain location because of availability of food, they will then find natural places to roost. So I think in tackling this issue, it's not about deploying more and more technology. AVA adopts a science-based approach to see which of these methods can be an effective way to deter the birds. But no scientific method will deter birds from coming back to sources of food. And I think this is where we need to continue to strengthen our public education, to also actually take enforcement actions where necessary against people who actually throw food particles out of their windows that continue to constitute a source of attraction for the birds. So I would say it is not just more methods. Some of these methods can be expensive and with very limited efficacy over a period of time. And I think in the longer run, it's probably more cost-effective and more durable if we work at the source of it, which is to deter uncivil behavior and also to make sure that our food establishment in our estates continue to practice good habits, good practices of removing food waste.
Mr. Gan.
Affected the resident who feedback to me. I also noticed that there was actually no throwing of no high-rise littering, to attract bird. What I will gather from the feedback that the resident given, actually, in fact, because the bird actually know where the source of the food. In fact, they fly into the house went into the flat, whenever they prepare, prepare a nice dinner, nice lunch, or whatever on their dining table, the bird even went into their house. You're right, I think that could be the source, but you can't really ask everybody to close a window because of that reason. Thank you.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I understand the concerns that Mr. Gan is facing with some of these very sensitive issues, especially. I think there are certain trees in which birds may be attracted to, especially those could be fruiting. I think if there are specific tree types that actually do attract a certain particular species of birds, we can actually take this back to NParks and see if there are options to actually look at the species of trees in our housing estates as well. But beyond that, I think it's also, what AVA is trying to do also is to adopt certain trials, right, to see whether there are ways in which, regardless of how many trees you change, sometimes the birds just have some way of going to a particular tree. So they are trying things like fogging methods, deterrent gels, and some of these trials may take some time to mature before we know whether the method is efficacious, and more importantly, it has to be cost-effective, because at the end of the day, this involves extra spending by town council, which means that conservancy charges will have to then be taken into account how actually the money is being spent as well. So I think at the end of the day, we will explore science-based methods to see whether there are newer ways to deter the birds. But immediately, I think if you recognize a certain species of trees, please let us know. We can get NParks to take a look as well.